It was March 8, 1977, at the Civic Center Arena in Springfield, Massachusetts. Elvis was in the middle of performing Can't Help Falling in Love when something in the third row caught his eye. An elderly woman, hunched over her walker, was crying uncontrollably. What happened next would become one of the most touching moments in rock and roll history. The arena was packed with 12,000 screaming fans. Elvis had already worked through his high-energy numbers: Jailhouse Rock, Hound Dog, Burning Love. Now he was settling into the slower, more intimate part of his set. But something was different tonight. Someone in that crowd needed more than just entertainment. Rose Murphy was 90 years old. She'd been an Elvis fan since 1956, when she first heard Heartbreak Hotel playing on her kitchen radio. Back then, she was 69 years old, a widow who'd lost her husband in World War II. Elvis's music had given her something to look forward to, something that made her feel young again. For over 2 decades, Rose had dreamed of seeing Elvis perform live, but life kept getting in the way. Money was tight on her pension, her health started declining, arthritis made it hard to walk, then came the hip surgery, then the heart problems. By 1977, Rose's doctors were telling her granddaughter, Jennifer Collins, that Rose didn't have much time left. "Your grandmother's heart is weak," Dr. Patterson had said just 3 weeks earlier. "She needs to stay home, stay comfortable. No excitement, no stress, no long trips." But Rose had other plans. "Jennifer," Rose had said one cold February morning, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need you to do something for me, something important." Jennifer had expected her grandmother to ask for help with medication or maybe a trip to the pharmacy. What came next surprised her. "I want to see Elvis before I die." Jennifer tried to explain that it wasn't possible. Rose was too frail. The nearest Elvis concert was in Springfield, 2 hours away. The doctors had been clear about avoiding stress and excitement, but Rose was adamant. "Sweetheart, I'm 90 years old. The doctors say I might have months, maybe weeks. I've spent my whole life being careful, being practical, doing what I was supposed to do. Just this once, I want to do something crazy. I want to see the man whose music kept me alive all these years." How could Jennifer say no to that? Getting tickets was the first challenge. Elvis concerts sold out within hours, but Jennifer was determined. She called every ticket office, every scalper, every connection she had. Finally, a friend of a friend who worked at the arena found 3 seats, 3rd row, center section. They weren't just good seats. They were perfect seats. The next challenge was getting Rose there. The concert was on a Tuesday night, 2 hours away. Rose could barely walk from her bedroom to the living room without needing to rest. How would she survive a 4-hour round trip and a 2-hour concert? But Rose was tougher than anyone gave her credit for. On the day of the concert, she got dressed in her best outfit, a purple dress she'd been saving for something special, pearls her late husband had given her 50 years ago, and sensible shoes she could manage with her walker. "I look like I'm going to a wedding," Rose joked as Jennifer helped her down the stairs. "Grandma, you look beautiful," Jennifer said, fighting back tears. The drive to Springfield was long and uncomfortable. Rose dozed off several times, waking up with little gasps of pain when the car hit bumps. Jennifer kept asking if they should turn back, but Rose refused every time. "We're going to that concert," Rose said firmly. "Even if it kills me." Jennifer hoped it wouldn't come to that. They arrived at the Civic Center Arena at 7:00 p.m., an hour before showtime. Getting Rose from the parking lot to her seat was an ordeal that took nearly 30 minutes. She had to stop every few steps to catch her breath, leaning heavily on her walker. "Ma'am, do you need a wheelchair?" a security guard asked, concerned. "No, thank you," Rose said with dignity. "I'm walking into this concert on my own 2 feet." When they finally reached their seats, 3rd row, center section, exactly where they'd been told, Rose looked up at the empty stage with wonder in her eyes. "I can't believe I'm really here," she whispered. At 8:15 p.m., the lights went down. The crowd erupted into screams that made Rose jump in her seat. Then the familiar opening chords of "All also sprach Zarathustra, filled the arena, and Elvis walked onto that stage. Rose started crying immediately. Jennifer had expected her grandmother to enjoy the concert, but she wasn't prepared for the transformation she witnessed. This frail, sick, 90-year-old woman suddenly looked 20 years younger. Her eyes sparkled, her face glowed. She was singing along to every word, her voice cracking with emotion. Elvis powered through his opening numbers with the energy of a man half his age. The crowd was going crazy, but Elvis seemed focused, present, giving everything he had to the performance. When he started singing Can't Help Falling in Love, Rose closed her eyes and sang along softly, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. That's when Elvis noticed her. Elvis was halfway through the song when he stopped singing. The band, confused, gradually stopped playing. The entire arena began to quiet down as people realized something unusual was happening. Elvis was staring into the third row, squinting against the stage lights.
"Ma'am," Elvis said into the microphone, his voice gentle. "The lady in the purple dress. Are you okay?"
12,000 people turned to look at Rose Murphy. Rose looked around, confused, not realizing Elvis was talking to her. Jennifer gently touched her arm and pointed toward the stage. "He's talking to you, Grandma," Jennifer whispered. Rose's mouth fell open. She tried to speak, but no words came out. "It's okay, darling," Elvis said, his voice warm and reassuring. "What's your name?" Rose found her voice, shaky but clear. Rose Murphy. "Rose," Elvis repeated, smiling. "That's a beautiful name. Rose, how old are you, sweetheart?" 90, Rose called back, her voice stronger now. The audience gasped. 90 years old in the third row of a rock and roll concert. 90 years old, Elvis said with genuine amazement. "And you came out here tonight to see me perform?" Rose nodded, too emotional to speak. "Well, Rose, I'll tell you what, that's about the greatest honor I could ever receive. Would you do me the pleasure of coming up here on stage with me?" The crowd erupted. Rose looked at Jennifer with panic and wonder mixed together on her face. "I can't," Rose said, loud enough for the microphone to pick up. "I can barely walk." "That's okay, darling," Elvis said. "We'll help you. I want to meet you properly." What happened next took nearly 10 minutes and had everyone in that arena holding their breath. Security helped Rose make her way to the stage. It was slow going. Each step was difficult, but the entire crowd waited patiently, many of them crying as they watched this elderly woman make the journey of her lifetime. When Rose finally reached the stage, Elvis himself came down the steps to help her up. He took her hand and guided her carefully up each step, her walker abandoned at the bottom. "That's it, Rose," Elvis said softly. "I've got you. You're doing great." When Rose finally stood on that stage next to Elvis Presley, the entire arena exploded in applause. Elvis put his arm gently around Rose's shoulders. She was shaking, overwhelmed by the moment. "Rose," Elvis said into the microphone, "tell everyone here how long you've been listening to my music." "Since 1956, Rose said, her voice trembling. "Since Heartbreak Hotel." 1956, Elvis repeated. "Rose, that's 21 years. That's longer than some of these folks have been alive." The audience laughed and applauded.
"Rose, I want to ask you something," Elvis said. "What made you come out here tonight? Your granddaughter told my security that the doctors said you shouldn't be here."
Rose looked out at the crowd, then back at Elvis. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "Mr. Presley, I'm 90 years old. I've buried a husband, raised 3 children, lived through wars and depressions and more heartache than I care to remember. Your music has been with me through all of it. When my husband died, I played Love Me Tender and cried myself to sleep every night for a year. When I was lonely, I played your records and felt like I had a friend. I wasn't going to die without telling you thank you." Elvis stood there, tears streaming down his face. The arena was completely silent, except for the sound of 12,000 people trying not to sob. "Rose," Elvis said, his voice thick with emotion, "would you do me the honor of dancing with me?" Rose looked down at her arthritic legs, her weak heart, her 90-year-old body that could barely stand. "I don't think I can," she whispered. "Sure you can. Elvis said gently. I'll hold you up. I promise I won't let you fall. Elvis nodded to his band, and they began playing a slow, gentle version of Love Me Tender. Elvis took Rose in his arms, supporting most of her weight, and they began to sway slowly to the music. Jennifer, watching from her seat in the third row, said later that it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Her 90-year-old grandmother, who could barely walk, was dancing with Elvis Presley. As they danced, Elvis sang directly to Rose, and something magical happened. Rose began singing along with him, her voice soft but steady. Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfilled.
The crowd watched in reverent silence as the king of rock and roll danced with a 90-year-old superfan who'd waited 21 years for this moment.
When the song ended, Elvis held Rose close for a long moment. Thank you, Rose, he whispered into her ear. Thank you for keeping the faith all these years. Elvis personally helped Rose back down the stairs and made sure she was comfortable in her seat before returning to finish the concert. But before he went back to performing, he did something that surprised everyone. He took off one of his famous scarves and draped it around Rose's shoulders. You keep that, Rose, Elvis said. Every time you wear it, remember that you made an old country boy very happy tonight. Elvis finished his concert wearing a different scarf, but he kept looking down at Rose throughout the rest of the show, making sure she was okay. When the concert ended, Elvis's road manager Joe Esposito came to find Rose and Jennifer. Elvis wants to see you backstage, Joe said. Backstage, Elvis spent 20 minutes with Rose, just talking. He asked about her life, her family, what his music had meant to her. He signed photographs and gave her another scarf. But most importantly, he just listened. Rose, Elvis said as they were leaving, you've given me something tonight. You reminded me why I do this. It's not about the money or the fame. It's about connecting with people like you. Rose reached up and touched Elvis's face with her wrinkled hand. You've been the soundtrack to my life, she said. Thank you for every moment. Rose Murphy died peacefully in her sleep 11 days after that concert. She was wearing Elvis's scarf. Jennifer later said that those last 11 days were the happiest she'd seen her grandmother in years. Rose told the story of that night to everyone who would listen. Nurses, neighbors, friends, family. She played the concert over and over in her mind, reliving every moment.
I can die happy now,
Rose said 2 days before she passed.
I got to dance with Elvis.
The story of Rose and Elvis spread quickly through the Elvis fan community. When Elvis heard about Rose's passing just 5 months before his own death, he was deeply affected. She made it, Elvis told Charlie Hodge. She held on long enough to make her dream come true. That's courage. That's real courage. Elvis started paying more attention to the elderly fans in his audience after that night. He'd look for them, acknowledge them, make them feel seen. Rose taught me something, Elvis told his band. She taught me that it's never too late to make a dream come true, and she taught me that music really can keep people alive. Today, Rose Murphy's story is legendary among Elvis fans. The scarf Elvis gave her is now in a display at Graceland, with a plaque that reads, "In memory of Rose Murphy, who reminded us all that dreams have no age limit." Jennifer Collins, now in her 60s, still has her grandmother's ticket stub from that concert. She framed it next to a photograph of Rose dancing with Elvis, a photo taken by someone in the audience that night and later given to the family. My grandmother taught me something that night, Jennifer says. She taught me that it's never too late to be brave. She was 90 years old, dying in pain, and she still had the courage to go after what she wanted. That's the real legacy. Not just that she met Elvis, but that she showed all of us what courage looks like. What makes Rose's story even more remarkable is what happened in the days following that concert. Word spread throughout Springfield and beyond about what Elvis had done for the 90-year-old grandmother. Local newspapers picked up the story. The Springfield Morning Union ran a front-page article titled, "The King and the Queen of Hearts." It featured an interview with Jennifer and a grainy photograph of Rose on stage with Elvis. "I've covered Elvis concerts for 15 years, wrote music journalist Thomas Bradford. I've seen him stop shows for crying fans, invite people on stage, give away scarves and jewelry. But I've never seen him stop everything for nearly usually 15 minutes, just to dance with someone. That wasn't Elvis the performer. That was Elvis the human being. But the story didn't just touch newspaper readers, it touched other performers. Frank Sinatra, when he heard about what Elvis had done, reportedly told his own band, "That kid from Memphis just showed all of us how it's supposed to be done." We forget sometimes that the people in those seats aren't just an audience. They're individuals with their own stories, their own struggles, their own dreams. Within weeks, other performers started sharing their own stories of meaningful encounters with elderly fans. It became a movement of sorts, treating concerts not just as performances but as opportunities for human connection. The 11 days between the concert and Rose's death were filled with moments that Jennifer would treasure forever. Rose had always been a private person, never one to seek attention or make a fuss. But after that concert, something changed. She wanted to share her story. She wanted people to know what Elvis had done for her. He didn't have to do that, Rose told her nurse practitioner, Sarah Williams, 3 days after the concert. He's Elvis Presley. He could have just waved and kept singing, but he stopped everything to make an old lady feel special. Sarah later recalled that conversation in an interview years after. Rose wasn't just talking about Elvis, Sarah said. She was talking about kindness in general. She kept saying, "If Elvis can stop for me, maybe we can all stop for each other." Rose called old friends she hadn't spoken to in years. She wrote letters to people she'd lost touch with. She told everyone about her dance with Elvis. But more importantly, she told them that life was too short to wait for the perfect moment.
"I almost didn't go to that concert," Rose told her bridge club on what would be her final visit. "I almost let fear and common sense talk me out of it. Thank God Jennifer didn't listen to me when I said maybe we shouldn't go."
One of Rose's friends, Dorothy Chen, remembered Rose's words clearly. She said, "Dorothy, we're all going to die. That's not a secret. The question is whether we're going to really live first." Coming from a 90-year-old woman who just danced with Elvis, those words hit different. Rose also spent time with her other grandchildren and great-grandchildren during those final days. She made sure each one knew how much she loved them, but she also made sure they understood the lesson from that night. "Don't wait," Rose told her great-granddaughter Emma, who was only 8 years old. "If there's something you really want to do, something that makes your heart sing, don't wait until you're 90 years old and dying to do it." While Rose's story affected her family and community, it also had a profound impact on Elvis himself. Joe Esposito, Elvis's road manager and close friend, noticed a change in Elvis after that night in Springfield. Elvis had been going through a rough time, Joe revealed years later. His health was declining. He was struggling with a lot of personal demons. There were nights when he didn't even want to go on stage. But after Rose, something shifted. Elvis started arriving at venues earlier, asking security to let him know if there were any elderly fans or fans with special circumstances in the audience. He began building time into his performances for these moments of connection. "It wasn't about the spectacle anymore," said Charlie Hodge. "It was about the people." Rose reminded him why he started singing in the first place, to touch people's hearts. Red West, one of Elvis's longtime bodyguards, shared a conversation he had with Elvis about a week after the Rose incident. Elvis was sitting in his hotel room, and he was looking at a stack of fan mail. Red recalled. "He turned to me and said, 'Red, you know what Rose taught me? She taught me that for some people, my music isn't just entertainment. It's what gets them through the hard times. That's a responsibility I can't take lightly.'" Elvis started responding to more fan mail personally. He began making special arrangements for fans who were sick or disabled to have better access to his shows. He even started a quiet tradition of visiting local hospitals in cities where he performed, though he insisted these visits not be publicized. Elvis never wanted credit for the good he did, Priscilla Presley said in a later interview. After Rose, he became even more private about his acts of kindness. He said, "I don't do this for recognition. I do it because Rose reminded me that I can make a difference in people's lives." One of the most incredible aspects of Rose's story is that the entire evening was captured on tape, but it almost never saw the light of day. Mark Mark Peterson, a bootleg audio engineer who regularly recorded Elvis concerts, was in the audience that night. He captured the entire exchange between Elvis and Rose, including the dance and Elvis singing "Love Me Tender." "I knew immediately that I'd recorded something special," Mark said in a 2010 interview, "but I also knew it was deeply personal. It didn't feel right to distribute it like I did with other concert recordings." For 25 years, Mark kept the recording locked in a safe deposit box. He told no one about it except his wife. "I listened to it maybe 3 times over those 25 years, Mark said. "Every time I did, I cried. You could hear everything: Rose's trembling voice, Elvis's emotion, the audience's reverence. It was magic, pure magic." In 2002, Mark finally decided to share the recording, but only under specific conditions. He contacted Jennifer Collins, who is now in her 50s, and asked for her permission. "When Mark called me, I didn't know what to think," Jennifer recalled. "Part of me wanted to keep that night private, just for our family. But then I thought about what Grandma Rose would want. She'd want people to hear it. She'd want people to know that kindness matters." Jennifer agreed to release the recording with one condition: any proceeds would go to a charity supporting elderly people pursuing their dreams. When the recording was finally released, the response was overwhelming. People who'd been at the concert that night came forward with their own memories and photographs. The grainy audience photo of Rose dancing with Elvis was enhanced and became iconic in Elvis fan circles. Music critics called it one of the most emotionally powerful pieces of concert audio ever recorded. It wasn't about vocal perfection or showmanship. It was about 2 human beings connecting through music. "You can hear Elvis crying," noted music historian Alan Smithson. "You can hear his voice crack with emotion. You can hear Rose singing along, fragile but joyful. And you can hear 12,000 people holding their breath, witnessing something sacred." That's not just a concert recording. That's a document of human compassion. The story of Elvis and Rose Murphy reminds us that music has the power to transcend age, illness, and even death itself. Rose spent 21 years listening to Elvis's music, drawing strength from it, finding joy in it. And in the end, that music gave her the courage to make one final journey. Elvis could have simply waved at Rose and continued his concert. He had 12,000 other fans to consider, but instead he stopped everything to honor a 90-year-old woman who'd waited a lifetime for that moment. That's what separated Elvis from other performers. He understood that every person in his audience had a story, and sometimes those stories deserve to be acknowledged. Rose died 11 days after dancing with Elvis, but she died happy, fulfilled, at peace. She got her moment of magic. She danced with the king. And Elvis, he carried that moment with him for the rest of his life. 5 months later, when Elvis died, friends said one of the last things he talked about was Rose Murphy, the 90-year-old grandmother who taught him that dreams don't have expiration dates. In the end, that night in Springfield wasn't just about Elvis giving a fan a special moment. It was about 2 people separated by age, fame, and circumstance, connecting through the universal language of music. Rose reminded Elvis why his music mattered, and Elvis gave Rose a reason to hold on just a little bit longer. That's the real magic of that March night in 1977. It wasn't just a concert, it was a reminder that we're never too old to dream, never too sick to hope, and never too late to make a moment matter. If this story of courage and dreams moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to chase what you love. What's a dream you've been putting off? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to hit that notification bell for more untold stories about the moments that remind us what it means to be human.